Are we live? Okay, I'm live. Oh, my phone just reset. I joined the space and then my phone suddenly rebooted. Let me let him know. My phone rebooted. He don't care. Not if I can get in. Recognize me. All right, fine. Just do the login thing. Okay, come on, big boy. What is the hang up? All right, now go to profile, scroll down, click on that space, join. Stress. Okay, we got all the regulars in here. Nick, Daddy Hexler, myself, Mike, Mac, Alien, Shane, Good Morning Stylist. I've seen Shane around. Pulse Biz, Lampshade, Crypto Somebody, Mike Go Mike, and Wrecked on Hex, Evolution. These are people on Twitter.
Good morning, guys. Hope you guys are doing okay today. Waiting for Banana to come in.
Here I am.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing good.
Yay. Yay. People are piling into YouTube also. Stylus is here, Mikey G. And maybe, I don't know how many others. I'd have to look on my channel. And K Crypto is in here. So, yeah, I put this around on in a couple few telegrams. So, we'll have some people showing up.
Awesome. Yeah, just so everyone knows, if you want to come up, feel free to come up and add to the conversation or ask questions. We're here to answer pretty much any question you have But if you're not someone who wants to come up, you might get a lot of enjoyment out of going to Banana's YouTube. You can just type in comments and add to the conversation, not verbally. And then also he has some visuals for you as well.
Yeah. Visuals whenever they pop up, right? You know, one thing.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice. Sometimes it's nice to just see a person too, right?
Uh-huh. Even if he's bald and 50 plus. Who cares, right?
The cream of the crop of 50 plus though, right?
Right. Hey, people have fish tanks for a reason. You know why people have, you know why people like to have a fish tank?
Let's hear it.
You don't like to guess when I ask you to guess. I've noticed this. It's because of the fish move. They don't move a lot, but it's something in your house that just moves, that just kind of breaks up the still, if you will. I think that's why people like a fish tank.
I agree. I like that answer. So instead of a fish tank, you just put Banana on repeat. Just play every video he's ever done.
Right. No, I think everybody's, well, I'm gonna speak for myself and the whole, everybody that a lot of people I've talked to this week, we're all just a little beat up. So this is we're gonna try to make this a place where we can all be refreshed. I'm gonna tell you, man, it's so important to stay plugged in crypto. So kudos to everyone that's here. You know, if you're keeping your ear to the ground in crypto, it's so easy to get fudded out if you're not plugged in, you know, or to jeet a bag that you're all excited about if you're not plugged into a community. So.
Yeah. On the other side of it, it's almost sometimes better to unplug at times and walk away and just enjoy some time with your family, friends, and and then come back when the sentiment's a little bit better.
Yes.
2 ways of going about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we all, well, I was talking to some other people this week, and they did a little bit of that too. Took a nap, went and did something different. So
I think everyone could kind of look at their own situation and decide what's best for them. If you're feeling really worked up and overwhelmed, sometimes it is best to just walk away for a couple days. Reevaluate if you're stressed about a certain part of your portfolio, maybe spend some time reevaluating that portion and then come back with a fresh mind. And if you feel like it's too risky or whatnot, go put it in some safer plays.
Sure. Some people have asked me what happened on I think you tweeted it out. I didn't see the tweet yesterday, but people have asked me like, what happened on the voice chat yesterday? Do you want to like give a summary of that?
Yeah. So we wanted to kind of hear our whole entire community, their thoughts. And we also had, I personally had, and some other people had some of their own opinions that they wanted to add, not only to each other, but just out there to our community, and possibly hear some bounce back, some agreement. And we got a little bit of both, right? Like some people saw the value, and I also see the value in why to hold, possibly an early PDI or UFO share. But we also have to zoom out and realize why that could be a little bit too risky for our system. So at the end of the conversation, we kind of all agreed upon that we should definitely be de-risking as a community from this LP pair, just due to there being so much uncertainty. We definitely understand that this kind of sucks for people who have early UFO shares. And honestly, I don't think everyone's going to pull them, even with what happened last night. Obviously, everyone hasn't pulled them yet. Maybe people are just still working towards it. Like they got to get their ledger out of, the safe and so on and so forth. And I get that it was a Friday night with family and stuff. So I assume there's going to be more PDI LPs pulled throughout the weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah, since that pool has been created, there was a lot of blockchain evidence showing that this actor had been on testnet, has been working on this idea for 3 years. There was logos put on the decks early. There was the founder tweeting about the chart. So there was a lot of reasons for us to believe that there was a little bit more behind the scenes that met the eye, and it was worth a little bit of speculation. But ever since RH pretty much started saying blatantly yesterday, stop buying PDI, I think it's a lot more obvious now which direction we should be moving in as far as the guidance of our community, right? Like, hey, this, as far as being an index on chain, we want to make sure we're capturing all the blue chips. And for a year and a half, PDI was obviously a blue chip on chain. Even today, it sits at a higher market cap than 99% of the projects on Pulse chain, right? Like if you looked at another blue chip that's not released by RH, like PDI still sits at higher market caps than all those, and it has more volume and everything. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to remain a blue chip. So kind of my idea of thought is, hey, focus on what the confirmed blue chips are, and let's keep our ears open for what the next blue chips or what are currently existent blue chips that we need to be focused on. Like, for an example, one that we have LPs with is the Most token. I do think there was a little bit of a sign there with RH selling some PDI for Most token yesterday. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at that one a little bit to maybe increase in our index. This isn't confirmed or anything like that, and this is kind of up to the community in general. This is kind of like thoughts that go through my mind, because I do like having some of those more speculative plays in the index, at least in a small portion as well, because those tend to move more volatile than let's say, some of the main RH tickers. For an example, yesterday, I think most went up like 50% or something like that. And those heavy movements really generate a lot of value for our ecosystem. So it's important for us to have the majority of the index in the very, very safe place. But I do think there's a portion of the index that we can put on some other assets that are also safe, that have a little bit more volatility to really add to the volume of our system, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of keeping my ears and definitely open to what the community's thoughts are on that. But yeah, definitely interesting couple days. At the end of the conversation, it definitely was the idea that our community, if willing to, need to think about de-risking out of PDI. And if they're into the UFO shares are still fairly cheap right now. I get that it sucks that you're losing a very, very early UFO share rate, but it might be what's best for the UFO token. And none of this is confirmed, right? I'm just going off of what RH tweeted last night, to create a pairing with like Pulse X or something like that has a little bit more definite.
Right. So let's talk about how much LP that we have with PDI for pTGC and UFO. I think with pTGC it was, I want to say, about 7%, and then with UFO it was about 11% yesterday. I haven't looked at it today, but because that has been another question, how is this going to affect these two assets, the grays, going forward? And let me repeat how I understand it, is that as PDI becomes less and less valuable in that pair, whether it's UFO or pTGC, that's going to bring the liquidity, the value of that pair down. And as the other pairs increase in value, it's just going to eventually leave that pTGC, the pTGC and PDI and UFO and PDI pair is just going to be, the ratio is going to become smaller and smaller as time goes on. That's how I understood it. Did I get that correct?
Yeah. So that's a good way to look at it, right? So like, let's say PDI was 10% of our liquidity ratio, right? It controlled 10% of our liquidity. Well, if the RH tickers move up and PDI moves down, that can easily turn into 5% of our liquidity. That can easily turn into 2% of our liquidity, right? That's not to mention also people removing it. Like, the removing it factor is a really easy way to decrease that percentage of our liquidity to one token. And the less percentage it has of our liquidity in whole, the less impact it has over our liquidity, or less impact it has on our token. That's also positive, that's also negative, that's also in value generation. So, definitely I'm trying to pay attention to what other assets are blue chips on chains that will be good for value generation, because the truth is, PDI has been the biggest value generation source for us. So with us closing a lot of these LPs down, I'm definitely on the lookout for other value generation source that have sustainability and longevity to, connect with our index. The main one I've been thinking is just the most token as of right now. It's done decently well for us since we've entered it into the index. This is like a month or two ago, right? It kind of paid for itself very quickly.
Right.
And it's just they'll naturally get pushed to the back, and the tokens that have growth will naturally become our biggest LPs, which you already see that happening. Like, for an example, the PDI LP is at like 100K with pTGC now, and the PLSX is at 633K. Where at one point PDI was the biggest pair that existed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the natural selection of these pairs are already taking place just a couple days into RH pretty much saying like, hey, we need to move away from this direction.
Right. Interesting that there is the most in the UFO die pair. The UFO die pair has the most volume of all the UFO pairs right now by about 150,000. The next one is WPLS. I think that's just a function of all the activity, all the attention on PDI. I was looking in the chat,
100%, right? Like if PDI was sitting stagnant, this wouldn't be the case. But PDI has had so much movement in the last week due to the uncertainty, and this is what our system thrives off of. And how I look at it is, guys, we've gotten to generate revenue off of PDI for a year and a half, right? So even with the separation of PDI, the fact that we are de-risking ourselves from PDI here, it's not like we haven't been able to utilize PDI for the last year and a half for our benefit. It has been a really net positive to our ecosystem as far as pTGC and UFO, in my opinion. Sadly, it seems like it hasn't been a net positive to the Pulse Chain ecosystem due to money going off bridge. I know it's also onboarded people to Pulse Chain. It's like the devil's advocate there. But definitely with the founder, RH, who I look to for guidance, telling us that we need to not be buying this anymore, that's a decent sign to me, and we need to pay attention to that. Yeah.
Shaka Vibes did the math on it. Currently, the UFO PDI pair is 7.16% of the total LP, and the pTGC PDI pair is 2.2. So, I mean, obviously 7.16 is bigger than 2.2, but 2.2 is such a small percent. So it's interesting that the one pair that we're being encouraged to do something with as holders is obviously the larger one, the UFO PDI pair at 7.16%. That's the one that we can, that's the one that needs to be reduced. That'd be cool if we could drop it down to 2.2%. Because that's such a small.
It was higher yesterday, so that means some people listened to the space and took action on it. I think some more people will take action over, the next couple days, just not jumping right away.
Yeah.
I think it will go down, and then naturally it will go down on its own if PDI just keeps going down. And again, like, what's that going to equal? 1% of our liquidity? That's going to have no effect over our system ultimately.
Yeah. And it kind of goes without saying that our existing shares will be increased as a result of this. Because when we exit a position in LP, we can't re-enter at the same share rate.
Yeah, that's one thing to pay attention to. I guess anyone who is getting in their UFO shares now, right? Like if you're adding LP with PulseX, or let's say you're even closing down your PDI and moving to PulseX, and you're still participating in the farm, you're a new person in the farm. Let's say you're even an old person in the farm and you're just in the RH tickers. Well, my bet is a few early people are going to be ending their UFO share rates here soon, which are going to really, I wouldn't say drastically increase the APY in the UFO farms, but it will increase the APY in the UFO farms based on UFO shares, because you're going to be losing a couple of early UFO shares people.
Yes.
Especially if they add the value back in. If they take that value, let's say it's $20,000, right? Let's say they have $10,000 each, and they sell $10,000 of PDI, they move it over to PulseX, and then they re-enter that value back into the PulseX UFO farm, which has seemed to have the least amount of impermanent loss. They would be putting back in the same amount of value to the liquidity web, but they would be receiving like 10 times less UFO share rates or something like that.
Right.
Maybe not 10 times, but you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
maybe like 3 times or something.
Yeah, our 30-day average holders added is at 30. Not to be confusing, but going back the last 30 days, if you average it, we've averaged 30 new holders a day for pTGC, which is a step oftentimes to UFO, which its 30-day average is, I'm going to need a second. It's not 30. Give me a second and I'll tell you what it is. It is 6.
Nice. Yeah, good to see both of them increasing in holders every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an encouraging metric to me because sometimes as the price goes down, I'm thinking, we're not growing. Well, we are growing in a way that's not the price, And every new holder that comes on is somebody that can tell a buddy or tweet about it. So yeah, we've got a good user base. I'm impressed. I'm happy with the progress.
Yeah, sometimes, if you can keep increasing your holder amount when there's consolidation or dips and stuff like that, when you can create that floor and start kind of moving back upwards, that's a lot of the time when people start reaching out, right? It's kind of difficult for people to reach out when price is either staying stagnant or going down. But when price starts moving in the upwards direction, I feel like that usually gives them a little bit of a confidence boost to start educating people on the product.
Yes. Mr. D in the YouTube comment says, long time silent watcher. There are a lot of those. I think there are more people than we realize in the Telegram that don't say anything. They just watch. And that's fine. But he says, long time silent watcher. Thank goodness for pTGC and UFO integrity this week. Banana and all you guys do a great job. Thank you. And we thank you, Mr. D. We appreciate your kind words. Yeah. Bitcoin is doing its Bitcoin thing. It is at $84,000, all-time high of $106,000. So it's got a 20%. It has a 20% move that it's got to just to get the previous all-time high. And I can only speculate how that's going to affect the market. So I'm excited for the future.
Just pulling up, I saw most was still doing decently well. So I was seeing how our LPs have been doing with most in the last 24 hours. And it looks like UFO has 84K with most, and it's generated 50K in volume. And pTGC has 58K in liquidity with most and has generated 60K in volume.
Okay.
Which is a pretty good ratio when you have the size of the liquidity doing the same amount of volume ratio. So, I like seeing the value that we've put in certain liquidity pools generating us revenue.
Yeah.
And making the system stronger. That's one thing. I know it's been a crazy last couple of days, and it's definitely been a few days where we've had to make some tough decisions as far as where our community goes. But the value generation in the last couple of days has been crazy for pTGC and UFO.
Yeah.
In the last 24 hours, we've generated $150,000. I saw just yesterday we raked in $1 billion in PLS into the Dow within 24 hours. I'm assuming we're doing that again. So we'll probably take in another $1 billion today into the Dow as well, which right now our Dow has just been stacking up. Right now, the Dow itself has 6.6 billion pulse in it, and then the Dow management wallet has 6 billion pulse in it. So we have a total of 12 billion pulse technically on standby for new LP positions with existing pairs like Pulse X, what we feel best as a community, or buy and burns at the right time.
Yeah.
Once the market kind of settles and we start moving up. So, I'm super, as chaotic as Pulse Chain's been, I'm super thankful that we do have a system that sadly thrives off of the chaos and the uncertainty, and we could use the machine that we have in place to, once everything settles down, the water's calm, we can use that value to push us right back up in the direction we want to be moving.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you said a couple good things there. People, in my private group were like, hey, I see they have like 4 or 5 billion sitting on their website. Why aren't they pumping their bags right now? And I think you said it nicely. You have 10, 11 billion right now. It looks like you're going to get another billion today. But dumping it in now when there's a lot of uncertainty in the market, you're just going to reward a lot of the panic sellers and weak handers as they're just going to sell into the rally. If you time it properly, not only is that 10 billion PLS worth more in US dollars because PLS hopefully goes on a nice 10, 20% run or something like that, but then you also have more momentum and better morale in the markets, which means now you rotate that PLS into buying and burning or buying and adding LPs and pTGC. And when pTGC starts having that green candle, morale's better overall in Pulse Chain, it's easier to kind of get the ball rolling and get some new buyers, new holders, new speculators to then add on to that green candle and market by pTGC as well. It's not good to blow your whole wad unless it's really special levels when the overall ecosystem is weighed down. Not only is Pulse Chain down, guys, we just talked about it. Bitcoin is down, 20% or something like that. The traditional markets, NASDAQ was down 10%. Now it's down 8%. There's a lot of uncertainty leading into the Trump tariffs of April 2nd. So there's macro down pressure on all markets besides Pokemon. So, you can't fight, you can't swim up the stream forever. So, stacking the PLS right now, wait for that to have a little bit of bump, wait for the general market and Ethereum to get a little bit of a morale shift, and then you go all in and start up pTGC, and then it'll be another market leader once again.
Yeah, that's exactly the thought, right? Like, if we kept injecting that PLS while the market was pulling us down, you can't fight the market like the connected things we are to, like Pulse Chain pulling us down, Pulse X pulling us down. You can't solely counteract that by just the DAO funds, right? You could kind of work against it, but eventually, if the market keeps going down and keeps going down, which it did, like it's been in a downtrend for pretty much a couple months now, you can't fight it to an extent. You'll swim upstream so long to where you get so tired, which in the analogy, tired just means like you're out of funds, and then you have to stop and you just get dragged down anyways. So you're almost better to wait, conserve your energy and wait for that current to slow down. And when you feel that current has slowed down, push that.
Yeah, in that analogy, we're still treading water because remember that in the protocol level, there is still automatic burns of pTGC occurring. UFO is still buying and burning pTGC automatically. And by being a holder, you're receiving collection rewards as well. So the burnt amount of pTGC out of the total circulating supplies continue to creep up even without us deploying DAO funds. So we're still treading water here. We're still, the system's still working, all while we built up 11 billion PLS to deploy when needed.
Yeah, I think in the last 24 hours, we've bought and burnt like $19,000 of pTGC and then $10,000 of UFO. And those are just the automatic functions within code. That's not even including the DAO. I did bring someone up. No more. Did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, good morning. How are you? I'm good. Glad to see all the soldiers still here, fighting through what we're going through. I know that you were commenting on reducing exposure to PDI, and I'm just wondering what your guys' thoughts were, because you said you're looking for more things to get proper exposure to. If there would be something on pump tires that the Grays community could rally behind their own launch of a Grays token and call it just call it the Grays or something, not to be confused with a second pTGC, but you see that on pump tires, there's people that are creating the pump tires die and the pump tires most token. And these things seem to be doing okay during this big problem that we're having with PDOT. And so we can see that people are funneling their money into pump tires, I think for more security, because those coins aren't tied to PDOT. They're not tied to things that are dragging down the ecosystem right now. And I'm just wondering if there's maybe any agreement with me that there could be something beneficial to creating a Grace token to launch off pump tires with a community of 10,000 that we have that can support a new meme being launched. And then you launch that meme and you would not burn it to the same address that the most token is sitting in, not that 80%, but you'd actually burn it to the burn wallet. And then you could start expanding a liquidity web straight off of pump tires instead of what we have with the RH ecosystem, which is great and everything that is accomplished, but you'd be able to expand a new liquidity web into the pump tires ecosystem and hand select successful launches off of the pump tires ecosystem, those people that do submit their tokens to the most token wallet, where that's holding 80%. And then if people submit their 80% to that most wallet, then they'd be eligible to be looked at as adding liquidity from the pTGC community from the DAO. And you'd be able to actually expand a liquidity web off of pumptires.com. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Thanks.
Can I take this?
I think definitely that's in the cards. Like, for an example, we've been slowly in the last couple months working on like the most and pump tire tokens, just because those ones RH has specifically tweeted about, so they had a little bit more security to them. Definitely less speculation, which meant less upside, but again, it's not always about having the most speculative assets in the index, but the ones that also have good abilities to do X's while also having a little bit of form of security to them. But definitely I'd say, we need to keep other thriving ecosystems in our radar, because, of course, like I could go and launch a pump tires, right? And then I could tweet and say, hey, I launched another token. This is pump tires. The thing that sometimes I don't like about that is it creates a form of divide, right? Some people that have been within pTGC have been in pTGC for a while, and then they're busy living their lives and they missed out on the early launch of that, and they didn't get discouraged and they're upset. Sometimes someone who actually doesn't even see the best interest in pTGC grab that token very, very early. So then you have a whole wash effect that has to go with that sub ecosystem that's directly tied to you. So definitely if an idea like that came about, we would have to weigh the pros and the cons, right? And then also do it in a very well thought out, deliberated fashion. One nice thing about pairing with, like, for example, the PDI ecosystem till to date, right? That was its own thriving ecosystem with its own natural volume, community, volatility. So it was very decorrelated from our ecosystem. So we could actually rely on days that we were doing a little bit poor due to maybe, let's say, a sell-off within a few community members or holders, right? They want some profits. Well, sometimes PDI would go on a rip on those same days, which then the sell-off would like not even have effect to us because we'd be riding up. Or, they would have a good momentum push when Pulse Chain was going down. Well, then that would create a volatile shift within our liquidity web, which would equal value generation for us. So there's definitely pros of like it being a within token, but then there's also some cons with a within token, because a lot of within tokens all move together as one unit. But I definitely hear you out, and it's worth a brainstorm.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, I would just say with that kind of question, there's already a zero tax token kind of connected with the Grace currency. So that brings very good volume for both UFO and pTGC. It's just my food for thought.
Yeah, and there's another example. Is someone has, Coach has a zero tax token that is heavily connected to our ecosystem already. Again, like one thing I like about other tokens that aren't so close to us, if we do find good connection with them, is they are like their own independent community, and they have their own independent momentum, narratives, volatility that move at different times than us, and it really helps generate the revenue. But like I said, there's multiple things on the table, but I do feel very, very strongly about how well pTGC and UFO has been able to absorb what's currently been going on Pulse Chain, right? Like you have some of the biggest downward pushes of not only like the PDI narrative, but also our other connected assets as well too. Like this isn't something to be naive to. Like the fact that everything that we're bonded to is currently down pretty hard. I'm talking about Pulse Chain, PulseX, Inc, Hex. Like we can't lie and say those aren't down also. But there is a lot more security and sustainability with those assets, with RH being legitimately behind them, to where I do think an upside push is coming at some point in the future. And when the upside push comes, we are ready for that push. We have tons of LP with them. We have tons of value in the DAO. We have our tokens redistributed a lot. So we're really ready for the next push. And in the meantime, what we're doing is, we're stacking like 12 billion polls. We are buying and burning $20,000 of pTGC daily. We're really getting ready for our next push. And we're setting that foundation for our next go.
Zen, have you looked at Pampy.app, that site that we were introduced to the other night? Have you looked at that at all?
I've been on it, yeah. Not recently, but
I'm just poking around on it. It's pretty so that it's pretty exciting. That the Pulse Chain Reserve, are those the sacrifice funds? I just kind of want some background on like where this information is coming from. I
think there's not a Pulse Chain Reserve. I think there's ETH that is the sacrifice funds.
Yes.
So there should be a place that says something with like a quantity of ETH and what the dollar value is worth.
Yeah, it does. Yep. So it says Pulse Chain Reserve in dollars, and then over to the right it has the Ethereum price. And so I think it's it's multiplying the price times the number of Ethereum that are in the sacrifice wallet and carrying it out into a value in Pulse.
Yeah, that they're just calling it I get what you're saying now. They're calling it Pulse Chain Reserve as far as that was like the Pulse Chain sacrifice.
Yes. So we think that there is the possibility that these sacrifice funds will be deployed onto the Pulse chain. So, and that's just, it's not there's no guarantee in that. It's just speculation, but sometimes it's fun to speculate. So if those funds were deployed onto Pulse chain and evenly split, put into Pulse Hex, PulseX, and Inc, it would 1400x Pulse, which would it would make Pulse worth 4 cents, in today's value of Ethereum.
Yeah, one of the main features of pTGC is the fact that we've been able to create this liquidity web at the bottom of Pulse Chain. To date, that system hasn't been turned on yet. The fact that we have all those X's built into the system that have yet to even be tapped into, and that's the X's of the blockchain we're built on. When that happens, or if that happens, our liquidity is going to increase by that much, our prices can increase by that much, our volume can increase by that much. That is a key ingredient to the pTGC machine that's yet to be turned on yet. And we've done very, very well without it. And I kind of always like to look at it like, we have all these paths that pulse chain as far as an ecosystem can go. And we just want to make sure we're successful, whatever direction it goes. If the RH tickers are really successful, we win, right? If they're mediocrely successful, we win. Let's say P-Hex goes on a run and the other RH tickers kind of do mediocre because RH wants to, get his glory back of Hex and doesn't care as much about PLSX and PLS, we win. If the big runner is Pulse X, we win, right? That's the nice thing about the index is we're covering a lot of different assets within one asset. Now, you look at the fact like, okay, well, let's say RH doesn't help at all. It's a completely decentralized chain. He delivered the product. Let's say he never brings that money over. Well, that's fine. We have plenty of X's we can do on our own. Look at how many X's we've done since the start. So that's kind of how I look at it is, okay, what can we do as our own sub-community? How many X's can we do on our own? And if he comes in and eventually brings value over, or if the pulse shape becomes more successful, or just general money starts coming over, well, how much is that going to multiply us by? By what magnitude? But we need to ensure that we have a way to win without the uncertainties or the non-for-sures, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing I love about, the pTGC and UFO ecosystem is we have so much growth that we have here on our own so that can be done, especially at the bottoms where we're sitting right now.
Yeah. John Wallace asks, is the PDI liquidity locked?
Everything that's left there with pTGC is burnt, so it can't be removed. It's only 100K in pTGC. In the UFO, it's community. So that's why we've been having these discussions saying it's probably a good idea. I don't know the answers to every future, but via the information we have been given by the founder of this blockchain, it seems like a good idea to de-risk, in my opinion. That's no financial advice. I have no idea what the future holds, but that's how it looks to me. And looking to RH as someone that should be guiding us in a safe direction, that's what he's telling me. Could be completely wrong, but...
Yep.
So that could be removed, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, the UFO LP.
Yes.
The pTGC PDI LP will just become smaller and smaller and become less and have less of an effect on that ecosystem. Yep. Well, what else, guys? I don't suppose this will be a very busy. Well, there are quite a few people in here, actually. So if you guys want to make a comment, raise your hand and Zen will let you speak. Or give you the mic. It's a kinder way to put it.
I guess I have another question about if, say, on the offhand, well, not on the offhand, just say PDI goes to $1 and it fits its narrative and it pulls through. Does the current pTGC exposure, you said it was around 2%, would that, and if say nobody adds or subtracts anything from it, but PDI goes up in price X number of magnitudes, would that increase the overall exposure that PTG is experiencing? Like, would that 2% exposure increase to 5% or 10% if only PDI goes up in price with only that factor to consider? That's my question, I guess.
Yes. So how these liquidity pools work, and this is how we want them to work, is there's a natural selection just that's naturally built into them. So if you created, let's say, a token or UFO, for an example. Let's say when UFO was created, every liquidity pool was the same, which it's community provided, so it could never be the same. But let's just, for example, say every liquidity pool was the same at launch. Let's say it's 100K, 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 100K. What naturally happens is your best performing token, so the token that goes up in price that you're connected with, will become your biggest liquidity pool, and your worst performing token will become your smallest liquidity pool, making it so your worst performing asset that you're connected with actually has the least amount of say over your system, like the least amount of connected value, and the asset that's the best asset you're connected to will naturally become the biggest asset that you're connected to and will have the most say over your system. This actually natural way of how this works is exactly how we want it to work. We want our best performing assets to have the most say over our system's up and down movement and also be our biggest value generation source. So in the past, just to kind of rewind, PDI actually became our biggest LP because our H tickers only moved up like 2x from when pTGC was launched, and PDI moved up like 30x. So PDI naturally became what I call the alpha pool, our best performing asset and our largest value generation asset. But now more recently, it has been climbing down in the ranks due to it not being the best performer anymore, obviously due to the recent events, right? Like I don't need to go into all that. So it's now putting itself at the back of the line and letting the other RH tickers become the bigger pools. Like for an example, in my opinion, PLSX is turning into the alpha pool naturally because it's outperforming Pulse Chain. So it's naturally becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is what we want. We want our LP pools that are the strongest and have the most upside potential to have the most say over our system. And this is the nice thing about having these liquidity web index structures is the pair that you have that does the best will become your biggest pair if you're not like adding to everything. For an example, like Pulse is still the biggest pair within pTGC, just because that one gets added to automatically via the code. So with every transaction within pTGC, it drips LP into a smart contract that holds LP between pTGC and PLS. But even with that drip, PLSX is catching up to it. It's actually gaining ground and getting closer and closer to that LP. So I hope that answers the question correctly.
Yeah, it does. It does. Appreciate that explanation. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. And, and time will tell, right? Like PulseX might not be the top performer forever. It maybe Inc comes in one day, maybe PHEX comes in one day and there's a huge move on it. But the nice thing about our system, then that good performer becomes our biggest pair.
There are still questions coming in, Zen, about the PDI UFO pairs and what to do. So I'll just state it out loud for everybody that's maybe just jumped in. We had a community voice chat yesterday morning, and can I put it this way? The leader, no, I shouldn't put it this way. We decided as a community, as a DAO, that the best course of action is for those that have UFO and PDI paired to undo those pairs. If you decide to do that, you need to be cognizant that you're jeopardizing your UFO share rate. So you need to be aware of that. And I suppose that there are going to be people, I think, as you said at the beginning of this meeting, that are not going to undo their LPs, but there have clearly been many that have, and that will help the system. because we want that UFO PDI pool to be small to help the ecosystem, the Grays ecosystem move forward, and the broader ecosystem of Pulse Chain to also be able to move forward, go up in price, green candles.
Correct. And as Pulse Chain moves up in price, that will naturally push the ratio of that pool to the back if PDI goes down or doesn't move up in price, making it from what I think is 7% of our LP today to possibly 5, then 3, then 2, then 1. Like, that's what we want to naturally happen. If that's from users pulling their LP, or if that's just from it just getting shoved to the back due to how these liquidity web natural selection systems work that we were previously talking about. I personally think there's going to be more people removing it just throughout the weekend.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't like just jumping right away at things, and they, will get to it. I think since we've had that VC, there's even more clarity, right? Like, RH was pretty much saying, like, hey, stop buying this, but he didn't say it straight, so some people are kind of still on edge. But then last night, which is after our VC, he also said, like, don't buy this, right? And it's just like, okay, that's pretty clear as day. So then the only speculation going on right now is that there's a psyop and he's trying to trick people out of their bags to then pump it to $1, which is fine if people want to believe that. But for our index of our system, it doesn't make sense for us to be paired with things so speculative. Right?
Yes.
There's a boundary there. And at this point, I personally believe that boundary is being crossed. So it makes the most sense for us to de-risk.
Yeah. So perhaps we should talk about, because pTGC and UFO are down. Pulse is like less than 30% of sacrifice price. Bitcoin is 20% below its previous all-time high. So what can you tell us about the broader market? Like maybe even into the you touched on the macro economy a few minutes ago. Like, what do you think the next few months holds for crypto? Do you have any insight that you can give to us?
I'll tap into a little bit on the UFO topic, right? Since we're kind of on that already. Even though it kind of sucks, to get rid of UFO shares at, maybe the PDI that you locked in there early, the pro of this situation is it's happening at the bottom. That Pulse Chain is literally at some of the cheapest prices that's been around in technically the last 4 years, because people who sacrificed 4 years ago did not get these prices. There's also a huge discount on UFO right now as well. So yeah, maybe you lock them in a little bit lower, but due to the general market just being down, you're still able to lock in some good UFO share rates at these levels. And keep in mind, if PDI doesn't start going up and other RH tickers do start going up, you might be kind of bummed if you were one of those people who didn't just close it down where it's at today, lock in the new UFO share rates at the new good, fair discounted price. Obviously not as good as possibly before, but a fair discounted price. And then you now have those UFO share rates for the existence of the protocol, to where if it didn't work in that favor, if PDI kept going down, PLSX went up, you might not lock. It might cost you 5 times the amount of UFO shares 2 months from now, right? If you're kind of on the fence. And again, I have no idea of the future. I'm just trying to give multiple outlooks to this situation, right? There's definitely a lot of different ways to look at this. And one of the pros of this is this information of PDI is coming out when RH tickers are extremely discounted. So it's not like you're de-risking out of something when Pulse Chain is at all-time highs and this is at all-time lows. They're both at lows, right? And I think that's worth considering.
Do you know where a guy can find the number of shares that exist?
I actually asked Kong to find that on a blockchain for me. We're working on getting it added to the new website that we're working on, so people could look at how many shares they have and how many exist in the system.
Okay. Sorry, just reading through some. So just to recap, pTGC's burned LP with PDI is 2.2%. UFO's community provided LP is currently 7.16% and trending downward.
Hey, I got a question.
Shoot.
Talking about potentially pivoting into some other speculative coins like MOST or Pump, is there thought to potentially not burning those pools in the future just in case? Once they are made?
Definitely.
Cool.
Well, our LP with MOST is not burnt currently.
Yeah, due to them being a little bit more speculative. We haven't been burning those speculative ones. Recently, the only ones we have been burning have been like the Pulse or the Pulse X or Hex pairs in the more recent months. Those have been the ones pretty much the only ones we've been adding to for the most part in the last year, because the LPs that we locked in with PDI pretty much are from like a year and a half ago. The only reason they are the size that they are today is because, PDI went up in price. We've actually been heavily focused on the Pulse X, Hex, and Pulse pair, and we've been burning those. But yeah, on speculative pairs, we're not going to be burning them.
What's the reason you would burn something? Is it because the way the DAO functions and whoever makes the vote has to buy it and burn it, or to kind of just instill some trust in the team, with the community?
I can answer this one. Hi, guys. I haven't seen you in a while. I'll jump in real quick and contribute where I can. That's exactly right. The traditional rug pull is a liquidity pool set up. People they trade their pair, so let's say USDC, for the speculative token, and then the liquidity pool. In other words, you put in all your coin, and somebody pulls all their coin out because they have the share. When you burn liquidity, it means you burn the right to use that liquidity from the pool after the fact. So once it's there, it stays there, and it's an asset to the community, but it can't be removed. So it can only ever be used as liquidity for trading between the pairs. So exactly as you said, to instill trust.
Right. Your background's really loud, by the way. I don't know if anybody else hears that, but I do. So let me ask you guys something. With the LPs we have set up with PDI, just to touch on it, apparently this guy, as long as there's liquidity provided, can mint forever. Can you explain, at one point, will it be some sort of impermanent loss where there will be no liquidity pools to mint against? I'm really not too clear on exactly what happens. Is there a time where they can't mint because the liquidity is so low? I just how would a liquidity pool become low enough to where the bad actor couldn't, withdraw his funds and bridge out against our pools?
So our pools have nothing really to do with him minting. Like, he can mint, or I don't even think he's minting. He's just pretty much taking a reward from these vaults that have pretty much like failed. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it, but he's being able to access PDI via rewards because he has control of the whole entire system, right? I don't think he's actually minting them right now. I think he's just, these vaults are needing to pretty much get repaid, and he's repaying them, but he's getting PDI rewards for doing so, and then he's just dumping the PDI rewards currently. The thing is since we have LP tied with PDI, it was hurting our price when he was selling the PDI because we're bonded to PDI. So the idea is, hey, so currently, since the information is very, very unclear, we have the founder of the blockchain coming out saying, stop buying this. There is too much risk to reward for our system to keep guiding people in the direction of, hey, provide LP here. Hey, this is a good value generation source for us. So we're, obviously saying, hey, as a community, we need to de-risk from this until more information is provided. If more information is provided and everything's good, we could revisit the subject. But until that date, off of the information we're provided right now, it's too risky. But what happens naturally is we have an LP position with Peter right now. Right now, that makes up like 3% of our total liquidity with pTGC. If PDI keeps going down, and let's say Pulse Chain goes to sack rate, that will really quick be less than 1% of our liquidity. So it will have ultimately no impact on our system, and the person behind this will have ultimately very little liquidity to even tap into. To my understanding, how he's actually accessing these funds, if PDI keeps going down and if PLS goes up, it's going to close that gap anyways for him to access those funds. Like, he won't be able to get those rewards as easily anymore. So it will naturally kind of slow down and stop as well. And that's kind of what, as a community, we're trying to stop as a whole. Like, hey, stop pumping the price up of PDI, because the reason of us pumping it up is how he's even accessing this funds. So stop buying it is pretty much what I got out of RH. Like, until this is resolved, or this might not ever be resolved, stop feeding this guy money.
So how does impermanent loss work? That's something I never really understood. At one point, you get more coins of one of the other pairs, and you get more of one of the coins. And how does that function work?
Well, I can jump.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I can jump in here maybe too, and people can correct me if I'm confusing. Is the background a little better now?
It's better now.
Yeah, okay, better.
So the idea of impermanent loss is one I've talked about before. Actually in these spaces. It is a complex one to wrap your head around, but for the sake of simplicity, let's say we have a speculative token and a stable coin. So were you to not provide liquidity, you would have all of both. And if the speculative coin raised in value, you would have the appreciation of that gain. In a liquidity pool, you're gaining fees for providing that liquidity for traders that want to swap between your two pairs. That's a bonus, but you expose yourself to what's called impermanent loss, which is the idea that if one token appreciates considerably more than another, or another token of your pair depreciates, goes down in value compared to the other, you may have been just better off holding liquid pairs. I hope that makes sense. In other words, because, without getting too much into mathematics, because of the way people trade, people are always going to look for the best value. And because you're providing them the liquidity to do that trading, you expose yourself to impermanent loss. That's what impermanent loss is. It's called impermanent loss because that can shift. It's not an actual loss. That ratio can shift again, right? The speculative asset that went up 100x, let's say, could come back down in relation to its pair. So it's not actual loss until you pull liquidity, until you remove your liquidity pairs and they're in lock-in under your gain unit price. In general, it's not as big of an issue as people think. And there are calculators for this where you can run through some scenarios. Just Google impermanent loss calculator, and you can say, hey, if I've got token 1 and it goes up 10x and token 2 only goes up 3x, what's my actual difference versus what's the impermanent loss versus just holding both those tokens liquidly? I hope that helps.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. Thanks.
Where providing LP works well is if you're paired with two assets that constantly come back to each other. So like you have impermanent loss all the time, right? Every time one asset does better than the other, you technically have impermanent loss, but you're earning rewards off of that. But if it round trips and comes back to the exact starting point that you provided that liquidity at, you actually have zero impermanent loss, and you made all the APY for providing that liquidity. And that's why a lot of people will provide liquidity with two assets that move together a lot of the time, because every time they bounce away from each other but then return to their original state, they have zero impermanent loss, but all the APY to gain. But the truth is, that's usually not the case. Usually they have one asset that's doing good and one asset that does very, very bad. And the asset at the end of their LP providing, they end up with the asset that did very bad and not so much of the asset that does good. And that's impermanent loss. If they never close it down, they never realize that loss. But if one day comes that they need to access those funds, or they see no value in holding that liquidity anymore, they close it down at a loss because they ended up with a ton of the thing that did bad, and they gave up a ton of the token that had value behind it.
Right. So that's my question. And how do you end up with so much of one versus the other? Is it because of the price difference, and then it kind of rebalances itself out based on how much you put in originally?
Here, I'll give you an example.
Go
You
ahead.
don't mind? So let's say you have UFO and PDI, right? You have two even bags when you provide liquidity. Well, you're just providing an opportunity for people to go between the two. So if somebody's buying up UFO, but that means that they're buying your UFO. They're getting your UFO, but they're giving you the PDI in exchange. So your bag, even though it's 50-50, you're going to have much more of the PDI than you will the UFO. So if UFO takes off right now and people continue to sell PDI, the people who close that position will end up with much more PDI, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I had thought. So your value is always going to be the same. Your dollar value of your pool is going to be the same, but the ratio of the coins you have within the LP is going to vary depending on the price action of the pair.
The ratio will be the same, but the dollar value won't. At the end, I'm sorry, if you compare it to what you put in. So if you put in, I don't know, let's say 100, let's say you put in 1 million UFO and 1 million PDI. And then when you close it, you have, 900,000 PDI and 100,000 UFO, but UFO took off. Well, there's your loss. You would have been better off just holding the UFO.
Got it.
Yeah, that just real quick. So how these V2 liquidity pairs work is dollar value, it's always 50-50. But the problem is if UFO runs, everyone wants UFO and no one wants PDI, they're going to be giving you their PDI that is a decreasing in value, and they're going to be taking your UFO that is increasing in value. So technically you're DCAing out of the asset that's going up and DCAing in to the asset that's going down. And yes, you will have remaining the same amount of value of each ticker, but the problem is the reason you have the same amount of value, even though one asset went up and one asset went down, is because technically you were buying up the asset going down as it was going down, and you were selling off the asset that was going up as it was going up, which obviously you don't want to do if you believe in UFO long term, if you just naturally, via how LP works, sold off constantly.
Yeah, so I guess it's pretty easy to do the math to see if one moves in a certain way, when you'll be taking a loss. It's probably 2x from the price that you put it in, one versus the other.
And then let me just add to, for the people, there's probably people who can like, oh, what about the PDI liquidity pool that's burnt, or the Tropa that's burnt, or Teddy Bear that's burnt? So basically, it was to say everything, or PDI just goes to some kind of zero level. It's going to go to some kind of floor because there's so much liquidity. But in terms of the pTGC ratio in the PDI pTGC pool, basically that since the PTGC is going into the PDI pool because PDI is going down in value and PTGC is consolidating or going to the right or going up, basically the amount of PTGC in that liquidity pool is going to be kind of like dust in a bigger, broader scheme of things in terms of the liquidity pool with Pulse, PulseX, PHEX, Inc., even EHEX. So for the people that have questions there, it's like the permanent loss factor with the burnt liquidity pools actually also over time get to a point where the amount of PTGC in those pools is obsolete. So
Tandem Risk asks, is it possible for the pTGC DAO to lock UFO shares and collect Pulse? You want to address that, Zen?
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be the DAO, but yes, the DAO could vote on, our ecosystem or, our management wallet or the OA wallet doing that on behalf of the community. So yeah, the DAO could vote and say, hey, let's buy UFO, let's buy an RH ticker, let's pair those together, and let's earn PLS rewards off of it, and then we could use those PLS rewards to do buy and burns in the future and whatnot. The only issue I see with it is a lot of the people within pTGC like using the pTGC funds for pTGC specific LPs or pTGC specific buy and burns. So there's a little bit of, what would the word be? Of even though they're the same ecosystem, there is people who favor one or the other. So I definitely think it would maybe not sit well with some people, even though other people might really, really love the idea. It's up to the community as a whole, but it's 100% possible, just if they want to do it.
Okay. Willard asks, are there any V3 pools for either pTGC or UFO that would allow for single-sided LP? Would this be beneficial?
V3 does not function properly with fee on transaction tokens.
Ah, okay. What is your answer, Willard? Yeah.
Personally, I'm not really a fan. I'm very biased against V3 liquidity because you'll see tons of liquidity in a system and it'll look like there's, $500,000, but then you'll open up the liquidity pair and you'll actually find that there's none of the real asset in all of the newly minted token within that pair. And it's pretty much just a sell wall waiting for people to buy. And a lot of people don't realize to look within the pair and see how much value there is actually backing the asset instead of just willing to sell the asset.
Okay. It's
you pretty much can create sell walls within V3 or buy wall, but.
Mm-hmm. Zen, it's been a while since we did some moon math. Do you think that might be a good topic to go over right now?
Yeah, that sounds good.
What if PDI goes to $1?
I think we'll skip that one this time.
Too soon.
Yeah. We're all wounded a little bit. That was salt, dude. That was salty. I'm just kidding. No, good joke.
You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh. We're in the Wild West out here.
That's for sure. Yeah. Sometimes when you're in the Wild West and you get hurt, you gotta medicate yourself too. It can get Western, as they say. All right. Well, let's do pTGC, and it'll be the same for UFO, guys. basically we're going to put an X factor of 5, and we'll do the standard 100X. Unless you want to change any numbers, Zen.
Yeah, if anyone in the community, besides me and Banana, since we're always the one putting it in, have a speculation of, what you believe Pulse Chain could do very moon boy or just modestly that you would like us to hear, feel free to just speak up so we can use your numbers. And then also, we can just use, for an example, since August, we've done a 10X against Pulse Chain. So we could use the 10X against Pulse Chain X factor number as well, if you want, Banana.
Okay. Yep. This will be, if we're gonna do 10X, that's gonna be a pretty significant. I know that's gonna be. It's gonna be 1,000. Okay. So basically, what it is the X factor is pTGC moving up against the layer 1 at a factor of 10, and then 100X on Pulse. And you take those two and multiply them. So that's going to be 1,000X, which would mean a 31-cent pTGC from where it is right now. 31-cent pTGC. And you can do the same thing for UFO. You can put in 10X for UFO. Although, how many X's have we done? Has UFO done since August? Do you know that?
I don't know that, but we could look at the chart and see.
Let's do that.
But yeah, if anyone listening or in the speaker board has a speculation of what they're hoping or think Pulse Chain will do this cycle, feel free to let us know and we can plug that number in for you.
Looks like a 6X. UFO's done a 6X. So I'm going to put 5X in there. 5X on UFO, 100X on Pulse. That'll be a 500X. But you got to bear in mind, like pTGC and UFO are bonded thickly together. So if pTGC did 1,000X and UFO only did a 500X, I don't know. How can you blend those two?
Yeah, it really depends not only on pTGC and UFO, but it also depends on the other assets that they are bonded to, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a simple equation. There's so many factors that add to the equation that you have to keep in mind. For an example, what does Pulse X do, right? If Pulse Chain does, let's say, a 10X, and let's say Pulse X does a 20X, well, we would be getting the mean of those two because we're connected to both of those. So, like, a lot of people don't realize is what you are getting in an X factor is in the mean of all the assets you're connected to. And mean, I mean average, right?
Right.
And it's an average based on the size of that LP. So if Pulse X is our biggest pair and that's the top performer, that's going to give us the most amount of X multiplier. If, Pulse Chain does a 10 and, Pulse X does a 20, and then let's say Pulse or P-Hex does a 30, right? We might end up with something near the middle, the average, the 20X.
Right.
But each asset, P-Hex or UFO and pTGC, have their own specific liquidity web and its own structure, right? Like, they have different sizes. For example, UFO's liquidity web with RA tickers is bigger than pTGC's. So what's that equal? That means mechanically, due to the bondedness, UFO will probably outperform pTGC due to RH tickers moving up more. But pTGC can outperform UFO very easily due to value coming into it. Right? Like a human comes in, let's say, with $1 million into each asset. When he comes into UFO, or just mechanically, right? Like the buy and burn built into the code, the fact that UFO is buying and burning pTGC as well, there's less liquidity there, which makes it easier to pump. which then in turn, since it's easier to pump, might attract even more people, get people talking, which, it's their LP webs are just a little bit, they're close enough to where they still function off the same mechanic and the same value generation system, but they both have a little bit of a twist to them, and the outcome of each is unknown, right? Like, who knows which one is going to work better? The fact that one has a little bit less can pump easier, or the one that has a little bit more bondedness, more liquidity, but it's a little bit harder to pump. Also harder to go down, because you have to sell more for it to go down as well.
Right. Robot Boy asks, is the token most added in the liquidity pools?
Yes, with both assets. It's most is included in the web with both assets.
And it's
and
also
pump.
Okay, it's also on secretobank.com. Guys, if you want to see that LP, secretobank.com. All right, let's do a reflections calculator. I'm going to have to log in for that. pTGC, we'll go into experimental mode. It's interesting to note, I don't know if you've noticed this, Zen, but the experimental wallet in here, it used to be, I think he held like, I don't know, maybe he held like 1 billion tokens or something like that. And now he holds less, unless Kong has changed the wallet. Let me see here. Because he used to be, he's still a shark, but he holds less tokens. Did you notice that?
I did not know.
Yeah.
I think he's just pulling a random shark from the list and using it. So
Yes.
they could have for sure taken some sort of profits
or moved pTGC to a different wallet. Yeah, any number of things could have happened. But anyhow, so, and on this calculator also, we can set parameters. So if you guys want to set a parameter for volume, then let us know what we should do. What do you think we should do, Zen? How many dollars per day in volume should we set this to? Because this is the reflections analyzer.
Yeah. Gosh, I think putting it at 5 mil could be fun. Right now we're at the bottom of Pulse Chain and we're pulling off $1 million volume days. We have to take in consideration as Pulse Chain moves up, volume can move up as well, just due to mechanically the arbitrage and market makers need to move more money.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we're at $1.3 million on pTGC right now. So $5 million sounds like a good speculative input for this. So what this is going to do, guys, is it's going to use this wallet, the assets in this wallet, the pTGC, and it's going to show us what this gentleman is going to earn at $5 million in volume. So his yearly return is going to be 45%. And this is reflections only. It doesn't count if he's got his token staked or if he's locked. This is only showing the reflections. And he would earn, in 24 hours, he would earn 78,000 pTGC, or $24 worth at today's price right now. His monthly yield would be $6,000. And his yearly yield would be $75,000.
yeah, and pretty much if you're staked and locked at least 90 days, you're earning 200%, roughly more than that. And I think most people who care about APY are staked or staked and locked. So you can technically multiply those numbers times 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for anyone listening, maybe you can at least just say like the yearly number at the times 3 again. And this is if you're staked and locked 90 days.
The yearly for reflections is $75,000.
Okay, so it'd be 75 times 3. Pretty much you're at like 20 or $220,000.
Yep. Yep. And then UFO, $5 million in volume again. Annual returns 412% APY. And then this dolphin position, 571 million UFO, would earn $43,000 in a year. And that's, of course, reflections only. Yeah.
Yeah, which with UFO, there's only reflections. You don't stake. You can LP provide.
Right.
One thing to keep in mind with, I guess this is a topic for UFO since we were talking about closing LPs down. With UFO, you do not need to LP to earn rewards. You can just hold and earn rewards just for holding. And the APY for holding has actually been higher than LP providing in dollar value. And the reason it's been higher in dollar value is because UFO has gone up in price in the last year and PLS has gone down in price. So by actually taking the UFO APY and earning in UFO, it's actually been beneficial because UFO is up since launch and PLS is down since launch of UFO. That's not to speak if you took your PLS rewards and instantly transferred them over to UFO, it'd probably be a different story due to the fact that you got those X's. But, like that's starting to like get really in depth with the APY. So just kind of wanted to bring that up that by just holding UFO, you're also earning, and you're earning off of everyone who is providing liquidity. So the people who are providing liquidity today, a portion of that fee on transaction from the market makers or human interaction are paying you as well for holding up the price and staying in the system.
Right. And then the lot calculator, we are averaging about 400 million pTGC early end locked per month. And if you had 100 million pTGC locked in 100%, so the like 10-year locks, and the price went to 1 penny, and this which granted this is 395 million for over a 30-day period. So this is going to show what this wallet would earn in a 30-day period. Its value would be $850. Of course, if you 5x'd your number of pTGC to 500 million, then the estimated value would be $4,000. Or if you went back to 100 million and pTGC goes to 10 cents, it's $8,500. So the locking rewards are looking like they could be, pretty juicy in the future. Granted, we go to these price levels.
Yeah, a lot of it is earned at the low levels too, right? Like that's one thing I think is important to pay attention to is what we're earning right now in the reflections and the staking and the locking at current values isn't that, crazy, right? It's not that crazy in numbers. But what we're earning now as the system grows can actually turn into a decent chunk of change. And that decent chunk of change that it turns into can either be used to compound, or that could be used for bills, or that could be ultimately used for anything. Like, it'd be nice if people could use some of their rewards to pay bills, and they actually never even needed to tap into their locks or their stakes, right? They could actually utilize the tokens that they earned during these cheap accumulation times. And then as price really goes back up, they're like, oh, wow, like I was earning 10 times the amount of rewards at the bottom, especially right now where we're a really good volume at the bottom. And then I just waited for that to go up in price. I kind of used that volume as my DCA because they're just earning more tokens here at the bottom, kind of like their DCA. So then when the price goes up, they're like, oh, wow, I can pay a bill with this. Or compound it, right? Even better, staying in the system. But, that's not the case for everyone. That sometimes people need to take profits or pay bills or live off of their assets. There's tons of different ways you can operate the system.
Yeah. So our reflections and staking rewards come into our wallet based on the price of the token today. When the contract executes, it's buying and distributing tokens at today's price. But the locking rewards are different. They're distributed based on token quantity, regardless of price. So the contract it's not looking at the price at all. It's just looking at the number of tokens that you're going to receive, which is one of the beautiful things about the locking system. And it makes it for me, it makes me a very exciting, speculative place to put my tokens. Because as the price goes up, the lockers are going to be earning more value, but it's not dependent on a contract like the reflections and staking rewards are. We know that contract fires every time, even if there's no human interaction. But the locking rewards, on the other hand, that it's entirely dependent on people early end locking. Mikey G likes those locking rewards. The calculator, anyhow.
Yeah, has there been any early unlocks lately with just everything going on in Impulse Chain?
Yes. Yes, there has. All right. I'm gonna tell you guys a bummer that happened to me this morning. So I have this spreadsheet pulled up, Zen, on my computer, and I do this. I take a record every day, and there was a pretty good unlock yesterday. I don't remember what it was, but when I was doing my data this morning, I think I forgot to insert a new line, and I was just inserting new data on yesterday's row, and then when I realized it, I was going to go hit the undo. You know how you can do that in Google Sheets, but instead I hit the refresh. I hit the refresh the page, and when I did that, I couldn't go undo all that I had done. I was like, oh no, man. So for the next 30 days, this data is going to be a little bit wonky, but it's only off by one day. But we had a pretty good unlock yesterday. I just don't remember what it was. It might have been like 40 million or something. But the 30-day total, remember the average for last year, every month last year, we averaged about 395 million. Well, in the last 30 days, and it's really no wonder with everything that's been happening, the average has been 450 million. So it's actually gone up.
Yeah, very interesting. I honestly thought that it would be slowing down just due to more people understanding how to create ladders and kind of really thinking through how they're setting up their locks and stuff like that. But I guess, the volatility and indecisiveness of the market makes people react, and, people who react and don't fulfill their locks obviously have to pay their 30%.
Yeah. I mean, there has been an early end lock every day. Well, not every day, but if you go back for the last 29 days, there have only been 3 days where there wasn't an early end lock.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. For people who are locked and are actually fulfilling their times, that's actually very, very rewarding to them. And also, a lot of those people are only 90-day lock people. And that means when they claim, half of those tokens, or 45% of those tokens, are getting burned.
Right. Yep. So it's like when they go to claim, it's like a benevolent act. They're actually helping the system, and they're helping themselves too, because they increase their position of the supply. And I have simulated in here a 500 pTGC lock into this calculator. So to give you an example of how lucrative this can be, on February 20th, this guy earned $17 for staking, $3 for holding, but $144 in locking rewards. But there was a big unlock that day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting though, right? Like I said, I thought they were going to be slowing down a little bit, but looks like they're increasing. And I don't think the volatility of Pulse Chain is going to be slowing down. I think it's going to be ramping up. Maybe not compared to these last few days, because it's been crazy these last few days. But I mean, as far as RH tickers, if Pulse Chain is going to be a successful chain, sooner or later there's going to have to be some volatility to the upside on these tickers, because they are darn low right now. And the nice thing about this system is, yeah, we make value off of the market moving up or down. So it can move down and we can make value, right? We've made $150,000 in value in the last 24 hours in a pretty down market, considering some of our LP pairs. Probably made, gosh, I would say in the last week, somewhere close to $1 million in value, maybe definitely over $500,000 in value. I'd have to add it up. But that's been in a pretty down market. Well, what happens when this volatility happens to the upside, right? Like that's still a key feature within the pTGC ecosystem that has yet to really turn on. We've seen glimpses of it. Like last year around this time, Pulse Chain was at all-time highs, which is, I think, like a 7x from here or 6x from here. Like when those situations start to appear again, we're not only going to be making the value as far as the value generation of the volatility goes, but we're also going to be earning the value as far as the price appreciation goes, instead of one or the other.
Right. But just to give some balance to my previous statement about, earning so much in locking rewards, the opposite of that is when you have a low unlock day. Like there was one day where for every 1 million pTGC that you have in a 10-year lock, you earned a tenth of a penny. I mean, it was a very small unlock. So the value of that was it was like fractions of a penny. But if you were staked, your staking rewards and your locking rewards way outshined your locking. I mean, your staking and holding rewards far outshined the locking rewards on a day like that. So it can go both ways.
Yeah. Hey, I brought up Frankie. Frankie, did you have anything by chance?
Yeah, I did have something to ask. I wanted to know more about the lock ladder or bonus. I heard you say something about if you have more than 10 locks on your
I lost you, Frankie. I'm sorry. I don't know if everyone else lost you halfway through.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now, yeah. Could you? I heard the beginning of it. Can you just go again for me? Sorry.
Can you explain the lock ladder, the locking mechanism? If you have more than one lock, is there a reward for more locks?
Yeah, I'll explain how it works. What you kind of took in is a little bit incorrect, so let me try to re-explain this. So how the locking is set up is it's got a bigger pays better and a longer pays better mechanism built into it. And the bigger pays better situation is the more you lock, you're in a pool with all the other lockers, and based on how much you lock is the amount of when someone early unlocks. Let's say you had 1% of the shares of the lockers, right? You're in a pool with all the other lockers. Well, then you would get 1% of the locking rewards. If you had if you had 10% of the pool of lockers, you would get 10% of the locking rewards. And this is just in simplicity, the more you lock, the more you get because you have a bigger portion of that pool. Well, now the longer pays better is there's a tier system built into the code. It doesn't matter how many locks you have. It just matters what tier you're in. If you're in the 90-day to 1 year tier, when you claim your rewards, you only receive 55% of your rewards, and 45% of them go to the debt address. And then if you are a 1 to 2 year tier, you will, when you claim, you get 60% of your rewards and 40% go to the debt address. And it goes up in increments of 5% all the way up to 10 years. So if you're a 10-year locker, when you claim, you get 100% of your rewards. None of your rewards go to the debt address. For any position that you're in, if you're in the 1 year or 10 year, the fee, if you decide to close early, is the same. It's 30% of your bag that you decide to lock up. So some people decide to go all the way out 10 years because they're like, oh, I'm earning more at these low levels and it's the same fee if I decide to close anyways. It's just this 30%. I'm willing to risk it. A way that some people counteract this is they will create multiple locks. So then if they feel like they ever need to close one down, they don't have to close down the whole entire position. They'll just close one of their like 5, right? So then they'll have like 5 10-year locks. They can close one down if they need the money in the future, so they're not paying on the whole bag. Other people have created ladders, right? They have a 1, a 2, a 3, and they go from 1 year all the way up to 10 years with all different size positions, making it to where as life goes on, every year there's a lock coming out if they need access to their funds. So there's a lot of different ways to game theory these locking ladders. But I hope that helped a little bit.
Yeah, that helped a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
With one question on that.
And that information, is that in the white paper? Because it's not on the UI.
Yes, it's on the white paper. Are you in our TG by chance?
In the Telegram, yeah, but I don't really go into the Telegram because it gets kind of inundated with win, why.
Yeah, no problem. If you need the white paper, if you don't have it, that's going to be the best place to go find it, just so you know.
Okay. All right,
so maybe
thanks.
you could just go in there and ask for it, and then someone will pull it up for you. And if you need it, I'm just putting that out there.
Okay. Well, I was on the web page, and I'm pulling it up from the bottom of the web page right now.
There you go.
Okay, that one might be a little bit outdated because we are kind of always redoing it. I know the most up-to-date one is in the Telegram.
Okay, I'll go there. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
I did have one question there on the staking there for the ladders. When you say bigger pays better, I just want to double clarify. So say a person has 10 million tokens and they want to put it all in a 10-year stake, and then they make 10 different $1 million stakes. Is there a benefit, or does it pay more to put the 10 million tokens all into one stake, or does it pay the exact same if you split those 10 million tokens into $1 million stakes? Are you getting the exact same benefit, or is there a different benefit that I'm unaware of where you put all 10 million together and get a higher reward because all 10 million are together?
It's the exact same. So there is no benefit to putting it all together. You can put it in separate ones and earn the exact same as all together. It's just based on the quantity that you put in all together.
Okay, perfect. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I might have been a little bit confusing on that one. I was more just saying that the more you lock, the more you get. Yes.
And there might be some wisdom in breaking up a large quantity like you were referring to, because if perchance you wanted to early end lock, if it's in multiple smaller bags, you're paying less than 30% of a larger bag. But there is a downside in that you have to claim multiple bags, multiple locks. And that can be a tedious process depending on how much extra ones you have. But I don't know if you noticed this, and at lookintoptgc.com on the DAP, you can actually claim all of your locking rewards at once.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was a feature that was asked for on our website, which hasn't been implemented yet because we're just working on a completely new website that has a lot more stats and analytics on it. But it looks like Kong, via what you're saying, picked that up and included that on his DAP. Just so everyone knows, Kong has a Look Into pTGC website, who is a community member of pTGC. He also has DAPs there for the pTGC and UFO, or maybe not UFO.
Yeah, not UFO.
Just pTGC as of right now.
Yep.
And what that does is it creates more of a decentralized platform for pTGC users. You can now stake and lock on Look Into pTGC as well, which is the community built website.
Yep. Well, what else, guys?
I don't have much more personally. We've been going for an hour and 45 minutes.
Yep. I think it's been a rough week. It was nice to meet on Spaces and chat, and hopefully things will turn better next week after we kind of get past this period of time. And then some green candles would help. But also what will help is all of us, going out and spending time with family, unplugging a little bit, go outside, the proverbial touch grass, and just get refreshed, right? I think that's a good idea for everybody. I've been doing a little bit of that myself.
Yeah. One thing I kind of want to point out about pTGC and UFO is definitely I think morale. There's been a lot of conflict on crypto Twitter and stuff like that as far as people's choices and what they probably maybe went too heavy on one thing or weren't exposed at all. And, you see like a civil war going on. One thing I love about pTGC and UFO is when you're holding these assets, you're holding ultimately the entire chain in a way, right? It's an index to all of the assets. So yes, due to one of the pairings being a little bit negative or a lot of it negative, a little bit, it's kind of a little under a lot of negative this week. But by being within this system, you weren't overexposed to something like that. It was just a part of the diversification within this system. And what actually I love about this system is how liquidity pools actually function is it will increase your positions, increase the share of pTGC in the good assets, and it will naturally decrease the positions in the poorer performing assets. And this is just due to how these liquidity pools function and grow and shrink. And yeah, when you hold an asset, your portfolio grows and shrinks by the assets going up and down. This is obvious. You know what I mean? But more importantly, with the pTGC and UFO system is the value generation source and the amount the connected assets have, say, over the singular asset is dictated by their performance as well. So it's very unique that we have a product like this on PulseChain, in my opinion. I think just the fact of by holding one, you hold all, that concept has tons of value, right? A store of value where you hold one, and by holding one, you hold all, has tons of value and market fit, and it really helps create a diversification, which is good in situations like we are right now on Pulse Chain. Definitely, I agree. Like the diversification within the PDI ecosystem was negative this week. This is obviously true. Like I'm not trying to beat around that push, but it was positive for a year and a half within the system. And we used that positively to generate value for this ecosystem. Yeah, now we're having to cross the road to where it's time to cut ties until more information becomes clear, either keeping the tie cut or then revisiting the idea. But it definitely, in my opinion, if you were exposed to the pTGC and UFO ecosystem, the diversification of the index, the fact that the majority of the liquidity was paired with the safe RH tickers really stood out in the last few weeks. Yeah, the whole entire market with even the RH tickers has been going down, but it at least has a healthy balance for users who don't necessarily know what direction to go.
Okay.
Here, I'm bringing someone up real quick. I didn't realize he was requesting.
Sure.
Hey, XT, sorry, I don't know how long you were requesting to speak. XT, did you have a question?
I got a question.
Go ahead.
I just think Chaka put in the chat, he's got a suggestion actually about potentially moving the ability to add liquidity to PDI from the DApp on the website.
So UFO is completely decentralized code, so it technically can always be done, but we can remove it from the DApp itself. But I don't necessarily want to do that because some people I know are still in it, and I don't want them to be in a situation where they're not able to properly access their funds. What I probably will be doing, just so everyone knows, when I release this new website that I'm working on, it's not getting released anytime like in the next week. It's just a work in progress along with everything else I'm doing. I just want to deliver another source of stats and information and calculators for our community. It's just a side thing I'm working on. Most likely on that new site, I will not include PDI. So if anyone does need to access their PDI shares or LPs, they will have to go to the old site, which will always remain up and functioning. But after this new site is done, if it comes out to what I believe is a good enough standard, we will use this new site to replace the old site, and we'll update it on the socials and stuff like that to where it wouldn't be accessible on the UI of the new site. It would still be able to be accessible via the smart contracts on the blockchain and also accessible on the old site. So for any user who still has shares there, we are not ripping away access for you to access your funds or close your LP without getting the fee or claiming your rewards, but making it to where we're not guiding new users coming in who don't have all of the information of the past getting guided down the wrong direction, right?
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Hex T Arms, I don't see your whole name. Did you have something? If not, I'm going to be shutting it down.
Yeah, go ahead, shut it down. Sorry about that. Have a great day.
If you have a question, feel free to shoot. Okay. Yeah. Hey guys, I'm ready to shut it down. If no one else has any questions or comments, I think everyone just enjoy your Saturday. It's been a crazy week on Pulse Chain. You know, just another week. Let's, kind of build our foundation, look at what is a great LP position for us to looking forward if it's the LPs. If it's you personally pairing with one of the RH tickers, if you're looking to lock in those UFO share rates, I currently believe the UFO share rates are super discounted right now. Pulse chains at all-time lows, UFOs at a very low range, not all-time lows, but pretty close to a good DCA point in my opinion. So take a look at the other LP pairs that are within the farm. You know, you can pick from all the RH tickers and provide LP there and get your UFO shares. And, you know, let's start moving in the right direction, find our ground, and keep chugging along.
I agree. We just keep moving.
Yeah, I just want to let the team know I appreciate over the last 72 hours, the community engagement. It does mean a lot to be able to, you know, go directly to the source, and I appreciate what the team's doing behind the scene. Everybody have a great day. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for coming up and just adding that. I appreciate that. All right, guys, I'm going to shut it down. Again, everyone enjoy your Saturday. Spend some time with your family, friends. Let's get outside. And, you know, Banana has his spaces tomorrow. If you're in here and you just want to learn about pTGC, not spaces, YouTube videos, sorry. If you want to learn about some of the basics of pTGC, how to stake, how to lock, how to add LP, he will be going over that live tomorrow. You can ask any question in the comments for him. If not, we're going to be hitting another one of these spaces on Monday. So, you know, let's just be ready to, in my opinion, let's hit next week hard and, you know, try to keep educating and informing people on the pTGC and UFO systems. And let's see where we can bring this thing.
Yeah. All right, Zen, we appreciate you being here too. And thanks for everybody coming up and chatting. It's always a blast.
Yeah. All right. See you guys.
See you, Zen. There you go. All right, guys. Thanks for jumping in. And not euphoric, but very bullish. Guys, have a great weekend. We'll see you AMA tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific. If you got somebody that's brand new or you are new and have questions, I'll be presenting pTGC, going over the DApp, how to stake, LP, all that happy good stuff. All right, guys, have a great day. See ya.